Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother, asarimhotep, with the Madhu Mandela Institute for the Advancement of Science and Culture. And we are back here. Today is Friday, May the 15th, 2020. And I am still here in Texas, missing Philly greatly, but I'm going to bring some of this Philly to y'all today. And making sure all my devices are working well. So if you can hear me well and see me well, give me a shout out in the chat rooms. So as always, I am live on Facebook as well as on YouTube, and still experimenting with my backgrounds. So I forgot what temple this is in the background, but I will get that info to you later. Shout out to the people who are already in the chat rooms. So I see Sean P. Who else do I see here? Sister Mika, Brother Chavez. I think this is RC Moabite. We have Melba Ortiz. And that is it thus far on the chat on Facebook. We have Womp Womp. Peace to you in the building. And then, of course, everyone watching live on Facebook. And, shout out to Atiba, Tolliver, Dietrich, Samuel, Brother Garfield, Tim Wesley, Strife M. Heru, and anyone else who is on who I don't get to see pop up in the chat. So peace to Nesubiti. Thank you all for joining me today. So this is going to be a very interesting topic. And so this is just kind of the beginnings of some ongoing research. So this is, in many respects, breaking news. So let me just get my stuff together over here. And I think I should be straight. I don't know why I look so much lighter on that particular screen over there, but I hope everyone is doing well, that you're not going insane due to the social distancing required as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic. I hope everyone is wearing their mask when they're going out, washing their hands frequently, and not touching your face out in public, that you are in good health, that you're eating right and exercising on the regular, and all that good stuff. So peace to you, Jaleel Henry and Okwi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, on the YouTube chat. So I hope not to be long tonight. So I just want to, get a few things out of the way. Announcement on Tuesday, and I don't remember what the date is specifically. So let me just get my trusty computerized calendar that will tell me all the good stuff that I need. So it's going to be the 19th. So Tuesday, the 19th of this month, May, I will have as a special guest at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Dr. Vanessa Davies. She is an Egyptologist, and she is currently working on a manuscript that deals with the relationship between Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois and Williams Flinders Petrie. So for those of you who are familiar with Flinders Petrie, he is one of the, true architects, even though he was a eugenicist. But he nonetheless is one of the original architects that set Egyptology on a scientific basis for organizing and setting up the dating methods and everything regarding archaeology in ancient Egypt, for ancient Egypt. So, it's an interesting bit of information because Du Bois and Petrie used to exchange letters and the like. And so he was getting, in terms of Du Bois, was getting a lot of direct information from Petrie at the time. So we're going to have that dialogue. Is going to be on Tuesday, May the 19th at 5 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time. So I haven't set it up just yet, but I will set it up soon, either tonight or tomorrow. So make sure, if you have not, hit the like button as well as the subscribe button. You hit the subscribe button when I go live or when I set up an event, you will get the notifications. So make sure that when they're up, you set the bell or click the bell, and we are good to go there. Secondly, I am going to do a fundraiser tonight. And so I'm going to be experimenting with different fundraisers. So I'm going to host a raffle tonight. And what I am giving away are 5 ebooks that are in total worth somewhere around $400 something. And I will also be giving away a physical book. So this is the latest book that I released earlier this month. Or was it the end of last month? I think it was the end of last month. So, well, anyway, I just released this text, Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam and Modern African Languages. It is a big 8.5 by 11 text, and it is approximately 340 pages of some good comparative information. And as a promotion of the book today, matter of fact, this discussion is found in totality in this book. So the conversation we're having tonight is titled Towards a Deciphering or Towards a Decipherment, Sumerian and Meroitic. So we're dealing with the Meroitic script today and just doing some comparisons. So again, I'll be holding a raffle. And so there is a link in the description that if you want to participate in the raffle, you can go hit that link. And, the minimum for the raffle is $5. You will be getting 5 ebooks, and I will be mailing you. This is, I don't know what, I have this big light in front of me, so it's making this, and then of course I have this green screen effect, so it's doing something funny with this. But anyway, you will be getting a free copy, saying, of this physical text that I will be mailing to you. So if you want to put yourself in the raffle, that is how you do it. Or you can do the, how should I say, the donation for the in the chat itself. So however you want to do it. So minimum of 5 for the raffle. So without further ado, I'm going to give a few more shout outs to Ernest, Godfrey, Jarrell Amade. I am not Pablo. I am King Sosa, Malik X, and Tim Clark. as well as Mosi Bundu on Facebook. Thank you all for joining me tonight. And so without further ado, let me make sure I have my special drink, which ain't all that special. It's just V8 fruit juice as I'm preparing for tonight, and random snacks. So I advise y'all to have some snacks and all that. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Y'all are here who are here, and we are about to get busy. So I am going to share my screen. And we'll do that. Let me click fully there. So I'm just going to wait. Yes, peace to brother Mark Smith. This is a dope chapter shirt. My frat brother out of Houston, Texas, who travels a lot to Ethiopia, but don't take me, but I ain't mad at him. Peace to LB, who just came into the chat. So boom. Alrighty. So let's get busy. So as I stated, the title of this presentation is Towards a Decipherment, Sumerian and Meroitic. And as always, we are engaged in the process of Sankofa. A synonym for that concept in the Twi language is Aluja in the Chiluba-Bantu language, which means to make, provide, to retrace one's steps, to refer to a place of origin, and to restore. So what we're trying to do is restore an aspect of our African history and to use that as a stepping stone to build for eternity in the place and time that we are at. So with that, Unshameless Pug, this is a book that was released in January, Aluja Volume 2, Cyena-Ntu, Religion and Philosophy, which you can purchase, which is on sale right now on my website at asarimhotep.com. And then, of course, the book that I just mentioned, which is Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam and Modern African Languages. So this, too, is also present on my website at asarimhotep.com. So as I mentioned, and I will mention out this throughout the night, I am doing a raffle, and I want to start sharing my library. And so, I have over the years purchased hundreds of books, and people always want to know, how do I know what I know? And, I have a variety of methods and sources, but I like to read the books that no one is generally reading. And so to get y'all up to speed, I will be giving away these texts, which I have purchased. And so on the left is Egypt, Israel, and the ancient Mediterranean world. And then the second one is Rethinking Resistance, Revolt and Violence in African History. The next one is related to the subject we're talking about tonight, which is The Kingdom of Kush, a handbook of the Napatan Meroitic civilization. That book there is $150. So then the Lugbata of Uganda. And then lastly, Nubia and Egypt, 10,000 BC to 400 AD. This is a very, 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 very excellent book. It's one of my dagger books that I'm sharing with y'all. So, and then, of course, Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam and Modern African Languages. That is the physical book that I will be giving out tonight. So if you want to participate in the raffle, then you have many ways that you can do this. You can, of course, again, put a $5 donation in the chat on the YouTube through that process, or there's a link below in the description that'll take you to a place that you can do that, or you can put in send directly through CashApp. And so your name will be put into the list, and I will announce at the end of the program who's walking away with this information. So I'll remind everyone about this throughout. So if you would like to contribute and enter into the raffle, this is how you do it. So without further ado, let's set the theoretical framework for tonight. And believe me, these are books that you won't know what you have until you have it. And so when making certain arguments, you want to be on the next level, is these types of books. And again, I will be giving away my library. So this is the whole purpose of this. So throughout the year, I want to share my digital library with the community, but I'm just not going to give it to y'all. I'm gonna make y'all work for it. So y'all want to know how I'm able to bust a lot of these pseudos heads? I'm gonna give you some of my secret weapons. So you can't take it with you. You might as well share. So if you want these texts and you want a copy of Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam and Modern African Languages, again, not subscribe. Hit the link in the description, or you can do directly to CashApp. Okay, so no more stalling. The theoretical framework, I want to kind of give you a little background of why I went in the direction that I did in terms of this topic. So for those of you who don't know, the Meroitic language is the language of ancient Kush. And to our knowledge, it has not been fully deciphered yet. We do have a general sense of the phonology of the language, and there have been a number of words that have been deciphered, but the nature of the language itself has not. So it is, a friendly academic race to see who can decipher the Meroitic script. Now, there's one individual by the name of Dr. Clyde Winters who claims he has deciphered it. I personally have gone through his data, and I find it not convincing. And neither has the field itself. So, we're still back at square one on the Meroitic issue. So many of you already know of this individual. I promote him every chance that I get. He and Dr. Theophilo Benga have provided the framework for which, I'm using tonight in terms of a general model. And so what we mean by a model or a theory is the overall structure in the synthesis of data that allows for us to make predictions and to test our predictions in future experiments. And so in this book, Jean-Claude Mboli wrote in 2010, The Origin of African Languages. And what he proposed was a confirmation of Dr. Theophilo Benga's Negro-Egyptian language family. And so, disenchanted with the lack of rigor amongst Afrikaans linguists dealing with the grouping of African languages, Theophilo Benga set out in 1993 to used the comparative method to provide a more accurate grouping of African languages and showing a more accurate set of relationships. And so he was able to do that, and the model and the theory and the label for that model, which he created, was titled Negro Egyptian, which is just Black Egyptian in French. And he grouped together a number of languages. He got rid of Afroasiatic, and he grouped the Egyptian language, the Chadic languages, Omotic languages, the Bantu languages, and the languages that are generally in Niger, Congo, or whatnot, into one group he called Negro Egyptian. He separated, of course, Khoisan, and he separated the Berber out of the Afroasiatic. He took out Semitic and made Semitic its own language family but outside of the African languages family. So for Theophilo Benga, it is only Berber in terms of true African languages, Berber, Negro Egyptian, and Khoisan. But there were some fundamental issues with his Negro Egyptian grouping. And so some years later, of course, here comes our good brother, Jean-Claude Mboli, and he re-examines the data and then starts to produce some experiments himself. And he was able to confirm the theory or the hypothesis of Negro Egyptian, but there was a lot of remodeling and structuring that he did. And so what you see on the left here is his grouping. But in my Eluja Volume 2, I have since relabeled some of his groupings. I have not changed the structure. Everything is still the same based on his 2010 text and this upcoming text that he's doing, dealing with the relationship between Negro Egyptian and Semitic and Proto-Indo-European. So I renamed the overall ancestral language Chiankanda, and then I named what he called Negro Egyptian Post-Classic or Post-Classic Negro Egyptian, and I renamed that Cyena-Ntu. And the languages that belong to Cyena-Ntu are like Hausa, Zande, Middle Egyptian, Coptic, Songo, Somali, and of course Bantu languages. And I added in here the Collagen language and the Sumerian language. So what Mboli argues is that out of these three branches, from the top, the Kikwe, Kweki, and Kikuki group, out of the Kikuki group comes with a branch which he calls Kabed. And it is from the interactions of the Kabed branch with the Cyena-Ntu branches that pre-Proto-Semitic is formed, and then the pre-Proto-Semites interacting with the Proto-Bantu speakers creates Proto-Semitic. So, hold on. So, with that in mind, this is just my visual for the grouping of Cyena-Ntu. I won't go over that. I've gone through that a number of times. You can get Eluja Volume 2. If you have it already, it's in there. And so he groups his Negro Egyptian, and which I call Cyena-Ntu, into two primary branches, the Beher and the Bere branch. And so on the left-hand side right here is the Bere branch of Negro Egyptian or Cyena-Ntu. So this consists of Middle Egyptian, Zande, Hausa, Bambara, and the Bantu languages. So what he's saying is that Negro Egyptian originates in East Africa near the Great Lakes, close to Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, those areas right there. And then the Bere branch migrates up to the Sudan and then spreads out there, while the Central Bantu was to become the primary Bantu languages moved in this direction, into the southern parts of and central parts of Africa. So then there is the Beher branch, spelled Beer. And this branch consists of the Luo, the Nuer, the Wolof language, Zerma, Sango, Coptic, and the Somali language. And so, again, Negro Egyptian originates near the Great Lakes, but, this Bere branch splits in two, and who becomes Wolof, and the Nuer, the Luo, is one branch of that, or one split, and then the Somali, Sango, Zerma, and Coptic. Again, the dispersion point is the Sudan. So this is his groupings from his 2010 work. And so in my 2020 work, the Eluja Volume 2, this is the Bere branch that I was mentioning. So you spell that Bere, the Bere branch, which is a word for liver. And so you can see the pre-Proto-Bantu, then Chi-Bantu, spreads here, and then again in the Sudan, dispersed. But you'll notice here, Sumerian. And so in this text, I argue that Sumerian is primarily, it is a Cikam-Ntu language, and that the original Sumerians migrate out of the Sudan and into the Middle East, and their last stop was in southern Iraq. This is southern Mesopotamia, and they are the foundation of the Sumerian confederacy, if you want to say, or city-state groupings or whatever. So, it's a group of these Negro Egyptian speakers or Cikam-Ntu speakers who, again, interact here and begin help to formulate the Semitic languages, and then some move further up here into Anatolia and the Black Sea, and they help to form the Proto-Indo-European languages. So that in of itself is a very lengthy and long discussion, but I'm just giving you the framework because, again, in Mboli's work, he takes a stab at looking at the Meroitic language in script and to see if it has characteristics of Negro Egyptian. So he's not claiming to decipher Negro Egyptian, decipher Meroitic. He's just looked at a few lexical items and then looked at his reconstructions and then scattered and looked at the number of languages that belong to his Negro Egyptian and saw some common words. And so, he set forth a framework for a possible decipherment. However, he did not stick to one language. And so, since, according to my model, the Sumerian language ultimately derives out of this Sudanic Nile Valley split, and this is where the Meroitic or the kingdom of Kush and Meroe was later on in history, then my hypothesis is that you are going to find, and thank you to Mr. Trade for your contribution. Thank you. So you're going to find, my hypothesis is that we're going to find commonalities in the vocabulary between the Meroitic language and the Sumerian language. And if this is the case, we could possibly use Sumerian in the process of deciphering Meroitic once and for all, if we can get some good data from it. So in my text towards a comparative dictionary of Cikam in modern African languages, I dedicated a chapter to this process. So you are getting some initiatory data in the text. So this is going to be in the book that I'm giving away today. So if you want to enter into the raffle again, click on the link, do the Cash App, or you can donate through the chat if you are on YouTube. So the link and the Cash App address is on both the Facebook and the YouTube descriptions. So let's continue. So here is the civilization of Sumer over here on the right. And it roughly takes up this area that you see here on the map in the red. And so you see the cities of Uruk, Nippur, Lagash, and Ur. So it's right there in between the Persian Gulf and, at the edge of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And so again, my argument is that somewhere between the 5th and 4th millennium BCE, that these migrants went through the Nile Valley into the Sinai, and a branch of these Negro Egyptian or Cyena-Ntu speakers stayed here. I don't know if y'all can see the mouse on the screen, but I am circling over here in the Levant area, that some settled there and interacted with the native folks there. And over time, through a process of convergence and a creolization, you get Proto-Semitic. And then there was a group of folks who continued walking and went here to what became Sumer, and set up shop there and interacted with some folks who were probably there, and this is what became the civilization of Sumer. Now, my hypothesis, in terms of, I'm not the first to argue that the Sumerian language is an African language, and so we have 3 different migration routes hypotheses from 3 different scholars. So you just heard my hypothesis in terms of the migration route. Hermel Hermstein argues that they originate in Chad and then came all the way at the edge and then crossed over to the Red Sea and then up. And then Dr. G.J.K. Campbell-Dunn, who argues that Sumerian is a Niger-Congo language, same thing with Hermstein. He argues that they come out of the Congo and, went through the Yemen and then came up probably on the edge of the Persian Gulf. So these are the hypotheses that that have been presented so far. So, hold on. So we will continue. So here is some artwork of the Sumerians. Here's one of Sumerian god with a bull head or whatnot. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Sumerian language itself. Excuse me. And this is coming from my text. The Sumerian language is spoken in ancient South Mesopotamia, in the area roughly corresponding with modern Iraq between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The Sumerian language is agglutinative. Its word order is subject, object, verb with noun modifiers following the head noun. Sumerologists also note 2 main dialects present in the 3rd millennium BCE. There is the Northern Sumerian, the area of Nippur, Adab, Isin, which lacks vowel harmony and uses the prefix a to mark the passive voice. The Southern Sumerian, the area of Lagash, Umma, and Uruk, possess vowel harmony and use the prefix ba to mark the passive voice. We can clearly see here that ba is what became a with the loss of the b in the northern dialect. Both of these dialects were called Imigur. However, there was another tongue called Imisal And Imi is a word in Sumerian meaning tongue in language. And so, which is the dialect of women. So women had their own dialect, and that's common amongst African people. So if you really want to know about that, I suggest you read my book, Nesubiti, Ancient King and Ancient Egyptian, the lesson in paronymy and leadership, which came out in 2016. Hold on. Hold on one sec. Okay, here we go. Yeah, there was another tongue called Imi-Sao, which is the dialect of women, and Sao meaning woman, that was used in cultic texts dating from the Old Babylonian period or later. Its vocabulary, pronunciation, and morphology are different than Imi-Gur. So this is the cuneiform script. I don't know what this particular artifact is, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like, they would, wedge these things on these kind of clay tablets. So they didn't really use paper or anything to that nature. That's coming out of ancient Kemet. But so now we are going to go into Kush, or the kingdom, the Kushite Empire, more specifically dealing with the kingdom of Meroe. So, at the time of the kingdom of Kush, these were the civilizations as we know them at the current moment. So the Blimni was right next door to the Meroe. So Meroe is here, kind of south of modern the Arab Republic of Egypt. So this is the area that we're going to be concentrating on. And so you can see over here around the same time, the Mande and their empires, the Noak civilization, of course, the Bantu tribes are, heavily concentrated in these areas here. You have the Nabtea over here, the Seleucid Empire. You hear that remember the Ptolemaic Empire. So this lets you know how late in history this is, because saying the Romans have taken over ancient Kemet, and so so the Roman Empire is the dominant in terms of the Mediterranean Sea here, and then you have your loose Arabian tribes here, and you can go through and see all of these different peoples and kingdoms around this time. But I wanted to give you a kind of a location of where Meroe is at. So if you can see my mouse, kind of circulating, I need to get one of those. I need to change the mouse when I do this so y'all can see it better. So here's some information about Meroe, and I'm taking this straight from Wikipedia. Meroe, also spelled Meroe, Meroitic, and Medewi and Bedewi. So actually, that is the original name of it. It is Medewi and Bedewi. Meroe is an ancient city on the east bank of the Nile, about 6 kilometers northeast of the Kabushia station near Shindi, Sudan, approximately 200 kilometers northeast of Khartoum, near the site of a group of villages called Bergowiya. This city was the capital of the kingdom of Kush for several centuries. The Kushitic kingdom of Meroe gave its name to the island of Meroe, which was the modern region of Butana, a region bounded by the Nile from the Atbara River to Khartoum, the Atbara and the Blue Nile. The city of Meroe was on the edge of Butana. There were 2 other Meroitic cities in Butana, Musawarat, Es-Sufra, and Naka. The first of these sites was given the name Meroe by the Persian king Cambyses in honor of his sister, who was called by that name. The city had originally borne the ancient appellation Saba, named after the country's original founder. The eponym Saba or Seba is named for one of the sons of Kush. See Genesis 10 and 7. The presence of numerous Meroitic sites within the western Butana region and on the border of Butana proper is significant to the settlement of the core of the developed region. The orientation of these settlements exhibit the exercise of the state power over subsistence production. And so I'm not going to get too deep in terms of the Cushitic empire or the Kushite empire and things, because I'm gonna save all of that for a future lecture, so we can really get an idea of, you know, what that kingdom was, which is why I am giving away, you know, saying one of these books, 2 books dealing with the Kushite and Meroitic kingdoms, you know, in the raffle tonight. So again, if you want to participate in the raffle, there is in the description a direct PayPal link and then the address for Cash App. So if you are and as well as the link in the chat of the YouTube. So you can click one of those and it's only $5 for the raffle. So if you have $5 to spare, put it in. And of course, you will also be getting a free copy of Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam and Modern African Languages. And if you win and you already have the book, you can suggest somebody else for me to give it to, and I'll give it to whoever you want me to give it to. But anyway, let me continue. So just a little bit of artwork of, you know, from the kingdom of Meroe, or the Kushite kingdom. And so here's a relief of a ruler, a Kandasi of Meroe named Kandaki Amenetore. And the Kandaki is not even really part of the name. It's really kind of a name for a queen. And I remember a conference I attended some years ago, and it was some scholars out of the Sudan who were there. And one of the scholars, I forgot his name, but I took notes while he was speaking. And he was saying that this word Kandake is a word meaning pure woman. And so this is the pure woman, Amenetore. This is how the script looks, or, you know, the syllabary of the script itself. And so we'll get more into that a little later. You know, here are some ruins. Here's a Roman kiosk and a Pitamak temple in Naka. And so you can see the heavy ancient Egyptian influence on the architecture. You know, when you go into Meroe, there's a number. They have more pyramids in the Sudan than they do in Egypt, but all of these are later. They're not older than the pyramids in Kemet, but they have more of them in the Sudan. Some more artwork, again, ancient Egyptian influence here, but they don't look that different from the ancient Egyptians. But they add their own flavor and spin to a lot of the concepts. Here is the Sphinx of Taharko, Egyptian artist Jebel Barker Temple granite, dated around 680 BCE. So now the linguistic context. I want to remind everyone that linguists consider the Sumerian language to be a language isolate. And what do we mean by a language isolate? A language isolate in the absolute sense is a natural language with no demonstrable genealogical or genetic relationship with other languages, one that has not been demonstrated to descend from an ancestor common with any other language. Now, that is the hypothesis of linguists who have looked in the area, have looked at the Sumerian language, because it's not related to Dravidian, it's not related to Semitic, it's not related to Indo-European, it's not related to any of the, like, you know, Persian or Chinese. any of those languages surrounding it. So they looked to those languages and found that they were not related, that the Sumerian was not related. However, they never, I'm not going to say they never, the main people who were looking at the Sumerian language and writing on Sumerian, they never looked at the African languages because, of course, Africans only stayed in Africa and everybody else in the world just popped out of the ground where they are. And so based on that belief system, they didn't even look into Africa to see if there was any relationship between African languages there. However, there have been a few people who have looked at Sumerian and, for example, Bantu languages and saw a number of affinities and correspondences that could not be explained by chance. And this is going all the way into the early 1900s, like the 1920s. And so one of the most prominent ones whose work has stood the test of time is Reverend Wagner, who wrote a book on Sumerian being the Sanskrit of the Ntu languages, and where he compared Sumerian to the Bantu languages in general, but the isiZulu language in particular of Southern Africa. And so he was able to demonstrate that the commonalities between Sumerian and Bantu was not fortuitous. And so later comes G.J.K. Campbell Dunn, who puts out a Sumerian grammar and a Sumerian dictionary, where he shows that the Sumerian and the Niger-Congo in general, that Sumerian is a Niger-Congo language. And then there is our good brother Hermel Hermstein, who has been researching since 1995 on the subject, and I hope to have him on the channel soon. And so I'm in the process of making that happen, to have Hermel Hermstein on this channel. We're going to talk about Black Sumer, his text. But he demonstrates that Sumerian and Proto-Bantu are related using the comparative method. Our good brother Jean-Claude Mboli, and that work that he did came out in 2013. But I've been monitoring him since the early 2000s, when he was on the University of Chicago linguistic list and bringing forth his ideas in the mid 2000s concerning the relationship between Bantu and Sumerian. So continuing, our good brother in 2010, which is a bit earlier than Hermstein in terms of the publication, Jean-Claude Mboli also does comparison between Sumerian and Negro Egyptian. So he doesn't make the argument that Sumerian is a Negro Egyptian language. He argues that it has been influenced. So he's finding these correspondences between these Negro Egyptian languages and the Sumerian. But he in his preliminary analysis, he argued that it was only influence, but not direct descendancy. And so, and then of course, I published my work in January 2020, and I'm arguing direct descendancy. And because, you know, again, Mboli was not aware of some of these earlier studies. And again, he was just, it was an analysis in passing. So he didn't do anything really deep in that text. So I hope I was able to demonstrate that this is the case in terms of the relationship between Sumerian and, you know, of course, Bantu. And I also take it a step further and show the relationship between Sumerian and Egyptian. So Sumerian, Egyptian, and Bantu all belong to the same language family. And then I show the influence also in Proto-Indo-European. So if you get my Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam and Modern African Languages, the very last chapter is titled, let me get it correct for you. Oh no, the very last one is on my etymology of the word God. But the one before that is titled Proto-Indo-European and Cyena-Ntu Lexical Comparisons, an initial bilabial test. So, we're slowly but surely putting this historical picture together. And, this is just some extra information to demonstrate the migrations out of Africa into the Middle East and then into Europe via the evidence of language. So anyway, again, I did this last week. I showed this slide last week, but it is good to show it again. And so what we're doing tonight is some word comparisons, some lexical comparisons. And in order to demonstrate that lexical comparisons, that the words that we are looking at are not the result of chance, there's a process that we go through called the historical comparative method. And, we always want to do this because human languages are limited in terms of the sounds that we can make concerning a language, and the amount of words or the combination of sounds to create words in these languages and in terms of meaning. So given how many human languages there are in the world and our limited phonology and concepts that we collectively have, you are bound to find words that sound the same or sound similar and have a similar meaning, but are the result of chance, that they're not inherited. So how can we distinguish those words that have a similar pronunciation and a similar meaning in terms of chance versus inherited, in terms of a genetic relationship? And we're talking about cognates, or words that were passed down from a parent language that evolved into the modern daughter languages. So this is a kind of famous example, and this is between the English language and the Kachiko Mayan language. And so we have this word here in English, mess, which is a dirty or untidy state of things or of a place. Then we have this word in Kachiko, mess, disorder, garbage. On the surface, because we have this word that starts with an M and the second consonant is the S, and they both have an E in the center, and they both mean the same thing, that someone could argue that these words derive from the same proto language or parent language. But what we do in terms of the comparative method is we look at we do what is called a first consonant test. So if the English and Kachiko Mayan language were in fact related, we would expect to see a pattern of words beginning with M in English matching words that begin with M in Kachiko Mayan. And so when we do that first initial consonant test, we see that this is not the case. So when we say English man, in Kachiko, they have atsi. English mouse, choi. Moon, kat-it, or kat-it. Mother, nan. So we see here that when we start putting these M words together in English and list them and create a set, then when we go here in the range set part of the set, we see no pattern whatsoever. And so by this first test here, it is clear that these are not the same words, and this is not the same language. So when we go back here and we see these forms in English and CashApp, and I know I'm pronouncing that all kinds of crazy, that these only look alike and have the same meaning by chance. And it's possible, you know, I don't know the history in particular, but it's possible that the English mess was borrowed into this Mayan language. So, you know, that's a possibility. But it is clear, you know, from our first test that this is not the case. So, however, you know, languages that do have correspondences, you see a pattern. So on the left-hand side of this column here is the ancient Egyptian language, which I call Cikam, which I borrowed this variant from Dr. Muba Benge Bololo. So this is how you would say Kemet in the modern Chiluba-Bantu language out of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And so here's Chiluba, and you can see this pattern here. So right now we're doing a first and second consonant test between Egyptian and Chiluba, or Cikam and Chiluba. And so we're dealing with words that begin with the voiceless velar K, and then the bilabial nasal here, the M sound here. So remember, in the Egyptian language, we don't have vowels, so they only provide us with the consonant skeleton. And so I usually separate the grammatical morphemes by a dot. So we will ignore the grammatical morphemes in the word. So I've highlighted here in the red for you the ancient the roots that we're looking at in both Cikam and Chiluba. So we see this word dorsal fin is Kemet. And then we see in Chiluba mu salala fin flipper. Kim service, duty, work. And then we have sala to do and to work. And actually I have more examples in this table in the book. And then Kim to pay, and then Selah to pay the dowry for a wife. Notice that the pattern here, wherever there's a K in the first initial consonant position in Egyptian, there's an S in Chiluba. The second consonant is an M in Egyptian, and the second consonant is an L in Chiluba. So we have the word Kemet here, Egypt, and then we have Musulu, river, brook, stream, creek. And so this all makes sense if you read Aluja Volume 2. And I have just finished a journal article dealing with the word Kemet that will be sent to a linguistic journal very soon. I'm having it reviewed by a number of linguists before I submit it. And then, of course, it'll be peer reviewed again if they publish the article. And so I demonstrate here. So this is why I have this rendering of the word Kemet here with the classifier being of a canal or river. And so the relationship of this is explained. So it makes sense in terms of Musulu, river, brook, stream, creek. And then Kim, complete, put an end to, Sula, to be finished, completed. Kusala, at the end of, the point of, limit of, the boundary of, at the border, edge, margin, bank, beach, or shore or coast. And so this is going to be very important, especially when you're talking about river, brook, stream, because this hieroglyph here is the edge of a river bank. And so if you get the text, you know, we explain all that. So this Musulu and this Kasala here is related. All matter of fact, these just hold right here is just all related. And so Cikam, to bring to an end, and this is the causative prefix, and then Sudisha, go through until the end, finish. Bantu has the causative S prefix, but is suffixed. So we see the same grammatical morpheme here. So And then this D here is still the L, but L turns into D when followed by I. So that's the formula that you see right here at the end. So just showing you this pattern here. So unlike what we saw here between English and Kachiko, where there is no pattern whatsoever, when we are comparing Chiluba Bantu with ancient Egyptian, we have patterns that are unexplainable by chance. And of course, we can do this for all phonemes in the language. And we see these patterns. So it's the same once we do Egyptian, Sumerian, and Bantu. So in this left-hand column, I have Proto-Bantu reconstructions. And then on the right, I have Sumerian. And then, in the center, I have Sumerian. And then on the right, I have Proto-Bantu. So in Proto-Bantu, the reconstruction is Badu, side of body, rib, side. And then Sumerian, outside, other, side. Also back, shoulder, or liver. But I think those are just, it's homonyms. These are separate words altogether. But Bar, so we see the pattern here. B, D, consonant sequence. Sumerian, B, R, consonant sequence. Then, of course, in Cikam or Egyptian, BR, outside. So, and then in the New Kingdom spelling, you see right here. So this N and R together is L in the New Kingdom. That's how they did it. And so that same root that BD is with the U suffix, it is side of body, rib, side, or whatnot. And then with the A suffix, it is open place. So you can see it's the same as these outside whatnot. So these are all the same. Then Bada, color, spec, color and spec. And then Bada, a color term in Sumerian. Bur, pigment, a pellet of pigment. BR in the New Kingdom in Cikam. Then BD, different vowel in the center, boil, be cooked. And then Sumerian, Bala, to boil, meat and water. And then Cikam, bur, to boil over. Bad, count in Proto-Bantu. Bur, a unit of area of unit of volume. And then bada, a fish. Let me continue. And then bury, a measure of length for a rope. And then no word here in Proto-Bantu, but bar and bada, a fish. And then in Cikam, bur, a mullet, a type of fish. So you can see that there is correspondences here between three languages. So this is not by chance that you have Proto-Bantu reconstructions and then Sumerian and then Cikam that you have these forms here with these correspondences to the right. So I'm just kind of preparing y'all for what you would expect to see between correspondences. So I did the same thing with a different Proto-Bantu. So it's MN is the consonant sequence. And we see the same things, between Sumerian and Cikam. Except this time you see the P representation in some of these. And so, I've done many of these presentations before, but just showing you the patterns. So the sounds of Sumerian, here are the sounds, but I just wanted to show you the sounds in particular because, this S is believed to be the sh sound. So when I'm showing the Sumerian words in contrast to the Meroitic words, you'll see some with this, but this is the general consensus, but it's not necessarily totally, agreed upon that this is the sound in terms of Sumerian. And then when you see this G with this symbol above it, it is actually the ng sound, the nasal velar. and like sing. So it's different from this G here. So I just wanted to make sure that when y'all see that, that y'all remember these two sounds. And so here are the Meroitic sounds. And, you know, we won't be reading directly from the script itself, but these are the sounds of the syllabary. So the B, P, M, L, R, N, and ne, and then T, D, to, te, S, and se, then K, ku, chi, chi, W, and Y. And then here are the vowels sounds. So, you know, nothing really extraneous here. So, of course, this is my renaming of Africa. So, Bukanda, but that's a different discussion into itself. So, with all of that said, I'm actually going to get out of this document and I'm going to open another document, which is, oh, no, I don't want to open it there. Let me do that. Yeah, so I can open it in the actual program. So boom. So this is the work towards a comparative dictionary of Cikam and modern African languages. So I'm not going to, there's just a PDF of that particular text. And so we're just going to scroll down till we get to the chapter on Sumerian and Meroitic. So here's my Proto-Indo-European, Middle Egyptian, and Sumerian and Hittite comparisons. You know, that is in the text. Let me see. And I should say this, that there are a number of interchanges that we have to be mindful of in this correspondence set. And so I'll just deal with the Sumerian. So remember this sound here, this nasal velar this nasal velar sound here. This in the Emi-Gur dialect, you know, corresponds to the M as in Mary in the Emi-Sal dialect. So this you have to keep in mind. And the T, let me see. No, let me go back. And so, but yeah, so you see the interchange, you know, here between the M or whatnot. But you also see this sh sound, or the sign that represents that, corresponding to N as in Nancy. So you see in, what is that? Emi-Sal, sh corresponds to N. And then G with N, because that N comes from the nasalized or the nasal velar ng. And so U and E interchange or correspond, and Z and D correspond, but also B as in boy and the G sound correspond between the dialects, as well as the Z and T. So since D and Z and T correspond, you know, in this dialect, the D and the T is also going to correspond or interchange in this dialect. And so what's another good one? There are some more, but these were the major ones that I put in the text. So I'm going to continue to scroll back up. Let me get into Because I was going to put all of these in the actual original presentation, but I didn't feel like making two separate documents. So again, Meroitic. So the chapter is chapter 3, Meroitic and Sumerian comparisons, a preliminary analysis. And so now I will get into the actual correspondence tables. So let me know if y'all can see this clearly. And we can begin. So let me know that y'all still alive in the chat, that I hadn't put you to sleep just yet. Let me know what's good. And I know there's a time delay, so I will wait a second. So I just want to make sure that y'all can see the charts clearly and if it's big enough for you to see. So if it is big enough for you to see, somebody in the chat, let me know that it is all good. Okay, cool beans. I appreciate it. So I will get started. So, oh, hold on. Let me do this. All right. All right, bet. So, Bumbaclot, I will get started. Okay. It's looking fuzzy on Facebook, but that may be just my computer. Thank you, Brother Sanjetti. Thank you, Jaleel, Shezmu Patah, Mika. I don't know what the hell Don Williams is talking about. And inalienable rights. No, Afroasiatic is not a grouping. If Afroasiatic is a grouping, I dare any one of you in the chat to produce a full text where Afroasiatic was proved using the comparative method. I double dog dare you. So we will continue. So let's look at this. Now let me scroll up a bit because I got to tell you that where I'm getting the vocabulary words from. So as I mentioned before, the Meroitic language, it is not deciphered fully. We know what the sounds and everything sounds like, or at least in general what they represented, but we don't know the grammar in detail, and we don't have a large list of vocabulary that has been deciphered. So, but there have been some words that have been deciphered, and some are loan words from ancient Egyptian, and of course they have their own native words and things of that nature. So I want to show you all that where I'm getting my vocabulary from. So on page 230 in the footnote 296, you will see, the different texts that I draw from. So F.L. Griffith, Caranog, the Meroitic inscriptions of Shablu and Caranog, Kirsty Rowan, a phonological investigation into Meroitic syllable, sings, nay, and say, and their implications on the E side. Kirsty Rowan again, Meroitic and Afroasiatic language, question mark. Then we have Penelope Albin, evidence for an early Nubian dialect in Meroitic inscriptions, phonological and epigraphic considerations. Edward Lipinski, Meroitic, review article, and then Claude Riley, Le Meroitic, It's a famille linguistique, as well as Ahmad Mansour, the Meroitic inscriptions in Egypt. There's actually another source too, where that is should be included in here. But you know, all the vocabulary words are drawn from here, because some have some vocabulary words and is missing others. So I had to use all of these texts to draw the vocabulary words. And of course, the Sumerian vocabulary words come from the Pennsylvania Sumerian Dictionary, located at this address. So just wanted to show y'all. So these words are part of the few words that were actually deciphered. So what we're looking for, what we're trying to do, is to see with with the words that have been deciphered, if there's any pattern that we can detect in the languages, in between the two languages. So we have 5 columns here. The far left column is just the numbers. And so we're comparing 60 words, I think, here today, Meroitic words. And so there's not that much more that have been deciphered, but these are the words that are our base comparisons. And then we have the Meroitic in the first real column, or the second column, really. The third column is Sumerian, and then the fourth column, remember the Cyena-Ntu that I mentioned earlier. So I put some languages in here with potential cognates for these terms here. And then on the far right hand side are the possible or the sound correspondences between the words. So let's go row by row. And it's probably 1 or 2 of them I'm not sure of, and I'll let you know that my level of confidence in those when we get to them. But in Meroitic, you have a bur or a bara, the word for man. Then we have in Sumerian, pil, male. And so we correspond here the voice bilabial plosive B with, in Meroitic, with the Sumerian voiceless bilabial plosive P. We see Meroitic here, R is the second consonant, and then L in Sumerian. And so I say that these are cognate with Yoruba, Bale, father, husband, leader, and Chiluba, Baya, husband. So we move down. We have this word here, at or ata, bread. And then we have ash, bread, a type of flour in Sumerian. And I say that the short possibly corresponds to Kiswahili and kate, bread. And so we'll see that there's, on both Sumerian and Meroitic, some words have loss of syllables between the two. So we have ato, water, and then we have ish, water. So we're already beginning to see a pattern here. So we see the T corresponds to the esh, and the T of Meroitic is corresponding to the esh in the Sumerian language. Ato, water, esh, water. Then we have sir, or asir, or asara, meat, and then animal. And so it should be known that the word for animal or beast and the word for meat and food is a identifying semantics in African languages. And then we have in Sumerian, sila, a cut of meat, or sula, salted pickled meat. So we see ablat with the vowels, which gives a distinctive nuance between the two words here, but the same consonant shell. So we have S corresponding to S between Meroitic and Sumerian, and then we have R corresponding to L. And so We have R over here in Meroitic and L with the male. So we see it again here. So we have 2 for 2 in terms of these correspondences, with the exception of B and P. And so in collagen, you have serakin, dried pieces of raw meat, cut slices of meat for drying. And so what we're looking for is the patterns of 3. The correspondences are stronger if we have 3 or more representations of the phonological matches. And so we have mlo, good and nice, and then we have mu, good, beautiful. So if these are cognates, we see here that in Sumerian, they lost the second syllable, which is very common in Sumerian in comparison to other African languages. And then, and I equate this with the cognate with nefer in ancient Egyptian. Like this is the cognate for nefer with the fur part, without the nasal prefix. But that's another story. But we see here in collagen language, mai, good, nice. So we have an M correspondence, and then an L, and then 0 correspondence. So we have this word here, R, boy, and then we have Amar, son, in Sumerian. But someone, made a suggestion that this was possibly alone in Sumerian, but I don't think so, given the other correspondence sets. And so if this is the case, then the Meroitic lost the first syllable here, or the first consonant in the word here, M. And the collagen language possibly explains that, because we have the cognate here in collagen, werit. It is a suffix here. It says son, boy, uncircumcised son. And so what we have here, the possible loss here is the M became W as a result of being in between 2 vowels in times past, and then it was lost, became a vowel oo and just became lost in terms of the signal, weakest situation in terms of the first syllable. And so we will continue. And then, I have additional information in terms of the footnotes. So like in this first representation, Meroitic, Bur and Bada, man, you can see in the footnote here, comparisons with West Chadic, Mbar, male, man, et cetera, et cetera. And we can find the same correspondences in their so-called Niger Congo, which is why we don't go by these unproven labels. And so I put forth the challenge in the chat. I see no one, has put forth. So if anybody who is arguing that Afroasiatic is a legitimate language family, I challenge you to provide the name of the text where the comparative method was used to prove the existence of Afroasiatic. So we will continue. And so for anyone who is familiar with linguistics, the proof of language of genetic relationship is done by the comparative method. If the comparative method was not used, you do not have proof of genetic relationship, because you don't have a method to eliminate chance as a result, to eliminate chance as a possibility for the commonalities you believe you see in the data. So we will continue. So we have take, to love, be loved, to respect, to revere, to desire. And then we have in Sumerian, hilegteg, to love, to be fond of, attracted to, which is a combination of hilly, luxuriant, Integ, to approach, to be near. And then Ciena-Ntu, we have in Lingala, Indeka, friend. Chiluba, Induka, friend, comrade, companion. Prefix of agent. And you have a biform of this word, which is nanga, love, and desire. And I go into the details of that in the text itself. So, hold on. Why hasn't this? Okay. I'm sorry. Going through, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm checking something on the other computer here. Forgive me for a second. Okay, let's continue. So we have this root here. And so we see the correspondence is T to T and then K to ng here. So we're looking for patterns. And so we go down to Kore, king, ruler, and then Lugao, king, and then Ngao, ruler. And so again, R, L, correspondences. So we have three, we should have more than three at this point. We have R and R and then R and L. So R corresponds, we know for a fact that R corresponds to L. And now we have this Ku and G correspondence. And so this corresponds to Middle Egyptian Heker, ruler, chief, and then Lingala, Likolo, up above, high, person of high rank, and Chiluba Mukulu, chief, director, president. And then we have this word here, Masa, sun, and then sun god. And then in Sumerian, we have Ashme, radiant, sun disk ornament. And I said, see also Shar, to make splendid. And there's a reason for that, because R corresponds with M in the compared forms. And so we see that this is the syllabic inverse. And so words in Ciena-Ntu for sun derive from how should I say, words meaning to shine in radiance and to propagate. So the words for sun are not directly linked to the object itself. It's the effect of the object in terms of the propagation of light. And that I discussed in Illusion Volume 2. But we can see that the syllables are inversed in terms of the comparison. So I equate M and M and then S and Sh together. And so we can see in Old Nubian Mahas and Old Nubian Masha, sun, Kanuzi, Dongalawi, Masi, sun, Nandi, Ma, sun. And Nandi being related to the collagen language, which is a Nilotic language. And so we have this Mate and then Mase, child and son. And then you have, again, the syllabic inverse, Dumu, son, child, daughter. So the D is corresponding with the T and S, and then the M corresponding to M. So we've already seen M and M correspond in other words. For example, here the Imlu, good, and then it disappears here in this variation. But then we have two examples here. So this is already three. So we have a pattern. And then we have this word mash, twin, because this sh corresponds to both S and T over here, as well as D and N in its own language in Sumerian. But and so we have collagen musu, child. And then we have sim, spouse, wife, and then we have dam, spouse. And so S and D correspond again. So you see here, S, and so we had a T and S correspond to D, then we have it again here, S and D. And then M and M, of course. So we have the M correspondence, and then Chiluba as Muluma, man or husband. And so a spouse can be anybody, a wife or a husband. But in, I guess in more specifically in Meroitic, it is, you know, it's associated with the wife. But and then we have dim, to take, and then we have sheg, to take, away, to seize. And so this D corresponding with this sh is proven over here with this version, this mash, meaning twin in terms of child and son. And so in my note 304, I talk about how the word for, you know, saying child in males come from the word for penis. So the actual historical origin is the word for penis, and then from the word for penis meaning to generate offspring, and then in another semantic branch it is the word for male, and then from there it evolves to husband and spouse, but it deals with genitals at first. So that's explained there, and then we have a whole conversation in Alluja Volume 2. Hold on. And so, and then remember that the G sound corresponds to ng, and we'll see later on that the G corresponds to both M and B, because this G derives from ng, as we see later. So someone asked, or someone made the someone is asking me in the chat, and I'll just read directly. In the academic field, what started this mad dash toward deciphering Meroitic? Was there a recent big finding or a timeline of events to catch us all up to why it's relevant now? I don't think there was any kind of recent mad dash. The deciphering of the Meroitic script, since the discovery of the Meroitic script, has always been an interest for those who are into Nile Valley studies. So there have been numerous people attempting to decipher Meroitic. And one of the things that I mentioned in the text here that I noticed is that when they try to compare Meroitic to other languages, they always compare Meroitic to some reconstructions that they created, or they try to find scattered words across different languages. And this isn't how you do comparisons. Remember that most Africanist linguists don't do historical comparative linguistics by way of the comparative method. So they're used to just trying to find lookalikes in various different languages. It's called the mass comparative method. And so what my interest in Meroitic is just simply, just an academic interest. There's a mystery there. So here's a puzzle that has yet to be solved. So why not put my hat in the ring? So what I wanted to do was something different. I wanted to pick one single language to compare with the Meroitic forms to see if there's a pattern. So in other words, we're going to utilize the historical comparative method to see if we can deduce some patterns. Because if we discover patterns and we have the sound laws in place, then this allows us to go further into trying to figure out other words that have yet to be deciphered in sentences. Now we can go into looking at, for example, Sumerian sentences and seeing if we see a pattern in terms of syntax, grammar, things of this nature. But everything always starts off with the comparison of lexical items, ideally with the basic vocabulary. But in this case, we may have basic vocabulary and non-basic vocabulary as far as Meroitic is concerned, because we don't have a full deciphered script. And so we got to take what we can get. Hold on. Someone said, do the Semitic languages come from Egyptian? No, it does not come from Egyptian. Okay. I'm going to continue here. All right. So we did those comparisons. So now we're on number 13 and 14. And it's really, these are variants of the same word. So the dim, to take and receive. So the first one we have is sheg, to take away, to seize, which corresponds to collagen, chike, seize, snatch away from, plug. And then another variant, seer. And so remember that K turns into R in certain contexts. And so we see this K and we see this G here. But in Sumerian, we also have dialectical variations. So remember what I said. This sh corresponds to both T and D, and G also corresponds to B and M and the ng. And so we see that. So remember, DM, take, receive in Meroitic. And then we have in Sumerian, dab, to seize, to take hold, to bind, to envelop, to overwhelm, to choose. These are extra, probably homonym variants here. And then we have deg, to take, to gather up, glean. So these are dialectical variations of the same term. So sheg, to take away, to seize, dab, to seize, to take hold, to bind, deg, to take, to gather up, glean, etc., etc. So this one form here in Meroitic corresponds to three forms, three different dialect forms in Sumerian. So now we've already established in three different occasions that T and S corresponds to the sh sound in of Meroitic, with the ch, the sh sound in, and the D in Sumerian. And we will see that again here with this word dime, cow. And then we have shar, a designation of cows. And again, this sh corresponds to D, and M with R. So we have two M with R's already in terms of the correspondence. So we saw one other earlier. So then we have wide, brother, sibling. And then we have mash, twin, brother or sister. And so again, the W corresponding to M. And so there's a phenomenon. So we expected that there was a prefix, either a vowel or a consonant vowel in times past of Meroitic, and changed this initial M into a W. We move further. Then we have yer, a yera, milk. And then we have ara, milk. And we see in Egyptian, yeret, milk, yereti, belonging to milk. So this could be, it's possible that this form here is a borrowing from Egyptian. But then again, if they're all related, and remember that, the Egyptian society, for a long time derived from these pastoral groups, and these words could be inherited. And so it's just a matter of establishing the sound meaning correspondences to eliminate chance. But again, R and R, and so the Y we have in 0 and R, so they correspond. So we've established R and L as official. And so we have B and B again. So Bore, elephant, and then Balaam, elephant. And so you'll see this and then in other related forms around in the area in terms of Africa, you will see B or W. These are all homoorganic sounds, but these are suffixes for large and dangerous animals. And we see the syllabic inverse in Middle Egyptian. So we have rebu, but that W is this M suffix for large, dangerous animal. And in collagen, we have bil yut. Yut is a suffix. So we have il, elephant. So bil, elephant. Bore, elephant. So, so this is considered, because I can't recall if there's ever been any elephants in Iraq. So this here is definitely a form of the word that they took with them to Iraq coming out of Africa. Because to my knowledge, now unless these same forms exist in Indian languages, and there's a possibility that even Dravidian, because you have scholars who have been doing studies with Dravidian and African languages as well, and showing those correspondences. Hold on. Okay, they have their own language. Someone asked, it says, Sumer is a few thousand years older than Meroe. So was Meroe founded by Iraqis? No. I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the conversation, but at the beginning of the conversation, I stated, I put forth my model, and I showed that the Sumerian language in my model originated with African speakers who their point of departure was the Sudan. And either crossing by boat over the Red Sea or going through the Nile Valley, they entered into what we call the Middle East and then finally settled at the edge of the river of the Tigris Euphrates. And so what we're seeing here is just what we would hope to be genetic evidence of the relationship between them. So we're not saying that the kingdom of Meroe or the people of Meroe were people who came from Iraq. That's not what we're saying at all. At least that's not what I'm saying at all. But we also got to keep in mind that the people of Meroe would be some of the same people who their ancestors, and if my model is correct, the ancestors of the Sumerians, they all lived and diverged in times past. So if that is the case, we should be able to detect in the language, evidence of their relationship. So that's the test that we're doing right now. So I hope what I said makes sense to you. So now we have kid, massacre, murder. So K, and then we have gaz, and kaz, to kill, slaughter, to grind, grate, to beat, to thresh, to execute, impose, to death, impose a death sentence, to break. And so K corresponding with G and K. So we know that there's a KG interchange in Sumerian, and then corresponds with Middle Egyptian Nger with the nasal prefix, to kill, to cut up. And then we have in collagen karis, slaughter, an animal for a sick person. And these are the sound correspondences on the right. So again, K and G and K correspondences, D and Z in these correspondences here. And so we continue. The word Meroitic, Kandi or Kadi, woman, lady, female. Then we have in Sumerian, Sal or Shal, woman. So remember that Sal, the dialect of Sumerian, the word Sal means woman. So tongue of woman. Hold on. And so, but I also have this form at the bottom, Gala, female genitals, vulva. So remember what I said. The words for male and female, and even for sons, daughters, and generations, comes from a word meaning private parts, genitals. And so we get the S and sh and z sounds from palatalizations of G in many instances. And of course, K. So this makes perfect sense in terms of the relationship. So I equate it to both of them. And then the Sal is a more, how should I say, evolved form of the root. So the Gala would be older than the Sal and Shal variant. And so in Bantu, Kadi, woman, Collagen, Kwanyi, woman. And then, of course, in Middle Egyptian, Karet, vulva, vagina. So all of these things correspond. They tell a story. So, what is? See, this other computer here is acting kind of slow. Anyway, so now we move forward. We have key, the order, work, and then we have king, to work, and also a kush, toil, labor, and then collagen, kazi, work. So remember what I said, the palatalization of z gives z, and then we have kush, z. And so I should have posted like the information, you know, on the controversy of this sound here, but we can see that it all corresponds. So again, K again, KG, and then KS as a palatalized form of K here, and then of course D and L we would expect. Sart 12 says there's an elephant called the Syrian elephant. Skeletal remains have been recorded from the Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and Syria. Yeah, there are a lot of animals that existed in that area that you no longer see there. Especially, I think some cheetahs and some lions or whatnot that was there. And so here's one, lach, meaning great or big. This is one of the ones where I'm not 100% on the correspondence, but I equate the h part right here to K, and with a loss of the second syllable. And here's why. So we go to my note here. And so Griffith, and my note here is for 311. So it says Griffith 1916 124 believes that the L in lach, great or chief, is a connective. He states it should be noted too that the L in the adjective lach, great, and in chief is probably only connective. Like the connective elsewhere, it is absorbed by the genitive S, which then becomes T. For example, win manis and then win manit ach. Thus, he believes that the ach is the main form. But then I say, but consider imboli, ilingata, lai, long, large, tall, or mulai. And so this one still requires a bit more investigation, because it could be possible that this is a syllabic inverse, just like our mash that we saw earlier. So I'm still leaving this open. So for now, I'm going with Griffith to say that this was a connective. And so I don't equate it with the form here in Sumerian, but the h with the K sound and the G sound in the first consonant position, and then the L being 0 here. So we'll continue. So here's a consonant vowel monosyllabic root, at least in Sumerian. So you have in Meroitic, S or Z, which is person. And then you have in Sumerian za, man. And then you have in collagen chi, which is the palatalized version of these, person, being. And then as I discussed in Alluja Volume 2, this is the root in muntu. And so mu being a prefix, in being a prefix. So the root is tu, person or being, embody, etc., etc. And then we have 24, ik, place, spot, abode, sojourn, place, where. And then we have in Sumerian, ki, place, ground, earth, land, toward. And so it corresponds to Middle Egyptian Ntu, the locative suffix, and then collagen, ka, place, home. And so we see here, and so this is why it's possible again. And you kind of have to read Alluja Volume 2, and you also have to read Nesubiti as well as Mboli's text for why there's these syllable inverses in a lot of these words. So we can see that the Meroitic form has ik with the I in front, but Sumerian has ki with the I in behind the K. But this is actually a short form. And so it's an R that was lost in this variant of the word. It's kur and kur for place, ground, land, country, etc. So that's discussed in chapter 7 of Alluja Volume 2, where I talk about the T suffix of place in the conversation dealing with the etymology of the word Kemet. So what is going on here? So let's continue. So now we have the inverse of the I position. So we have me, rain, libation. Then we have rain, rainstorm in Sumerian. So remember that this column here is the Meroitic, and this column here is Sumerian. And then Chiluba, Mvula, and collagen, Rub, saying rain. And then again, so the M correspondences are strong between the two. So it's not even a guess anymore. Hold on. So mo, boast, extensive, ample, expansive, boundlessness. And then mu, grow. And then chiluba is ingi, abundant, buingi, quantity, number, multiplicity. And then vule. And so for those of us who are familiar with phonology, and I show in Alluja Volume 2 that Bantu ng corresponds both to Sumerian and ancient Egyptian m. That's why I demonstrate that the very word Congo itself is cognate with the word Kemet. That's another discussion for now. So we see here again, mo, to be, and then we have mal, ngal, to be, to exist, to put, to place, to lay down, to have. And then collagen, me, be in a place, is there. And then meet, to be, to exist. So we see that according to the Sumerian, that there's a loss with a second sound here in Meroitic. And so for those familiar with African phonology, know that the liquids are easily lost in compared words. And so this is why it's always a good thing to compare a monosyllabic isolating language like Yoruba to a language whose roots are primarily consonant, vowel, consonant. So we can detect if there's any loss of consonants that make it the consonant and vowel syllables that we see in the data. So, and then chiluba va, past from, did ikala, to be, the future. And so remember again, ng, and then And so matter of fact, going back, this ng and correspondence is exactly what you see in Sumerian. So then we have mek, much, many, considerable. Ma, to be, great. and then so MM and then KH. And so I think there's only one of these. And then Ness, sacrifice, and then Gesh, and then Mu, and then U, which is a word for tree, wood, and then a description of animals. And then remember, Ng corresponds to M. And so you have Mash, goat, ecstasy in divination. So remember, you would sacrifice certain animals in the divination process, and then sacrificial animal for omens. So when you see sacrifice here, then this makes sense. And so you see a Middle Egyptian, Sema, or wild bull, or sacrifice, sacrificial steer. And so what I'm arguing here is that it's the inverse here for Middle Egyptian. So Semer for wild bull, which is also just Sim. So this is a suffix. And so this N corresponds to Ng, and then this S with Sh, as we have seen earlier. So this is the correspondence set here. Then we have Are, to take, to receive. And then we have Shu, hand, and then Shi, to take away, to seize. And so R and then Sh is the correspondence here. And then we have Wile, dog, and then we have dog, figurine, toy, and then also the word for lion. And remember, there's a form in Egyptian, Meri, lion. So it lets you know that the word for lion and dog, if you know these three languages are related, are the same. And this W again comes from M. And then this W is reduced simply to U in Sumerian. So it's dog, and then lion. It's the same word for lion. So in this, it remained dog, and then this form became lion in Egyptian. And so in Bantu, we have Kuri, dog. And so what ultimately happened, we can tell from the Bantu data, is that this K was rounded. And so we had Ku, which became M, which then became further W, and then U. So we can see the, and there's other evidence for this, but it all shows the same. And so we have Pete, snake, and then we have Mush, snake, Ushun, snake. So you can see even in Sumerian, this syllable inverse. So the reversal of the syllables. So if you're unaware of this feature of these African languages, you know, you may miss some correspondences. And so it's P and then M correspondence, and then a T and then Esh correspondence. And so then we have a Pete, which is envoy, and then we have Bad, to open in Sumerian, which is also a variant of Ngal, to open, which corresponds to college, and Bet, to open. Now an envoy or a messenger, I got to go to the footnote, because as I discussed, this is a loan word into the Meroitic language. And so this loan word comes from wet, message, task, wepti, messenger. It derives ultimately from the root wepi, meaning to open, to divide. Dialectical variant of weber, to open, to pour out. And so the cognates in Sumerian, Ngal, open, and Bad, to open, to remote, etc. Bar, to cut open and split. So that's why the cognate for the term, even though it's a borrowing in Meroitic, is Bad and Ngal, to open. So that's where the forms come from. So and then we have this Abase, gazelle, and then we have Mashda, gazelle, which corresponds to Chiluba Mbaji, which is really Mbazi. But because of the I behind the Z, it turns the Z into J. So another variant is Mbashi, species of antelope. And so this da is a suffix. So we go to my note here in 317. Says 317. We must account for the da in mashda, gazelle. It appears to be a suffix. Compare the word mash, goat, expects to see sacrificial animal, etc., etc. For a cross comparison, we note mash, a drainage tile in Sumerian, and then mashda, stone. The da suffix may act as an abstract affix similar to the t in Egyptian and college and at. So that da is a suffix. So the root of that we're comparing here is mash. And so again, M and B correspond, and then S with sh. So these are the correspondence here. Then we have shur, a book, and then we have sar, to write. And then when the collagen, we have sir, write, and then authors. And so there was a semantic shift in Meroitic. And so more than likely, this is it's either going to be a borrowing or it's just a semantic. I vouch for a semantic shift, because all of these forms there should be a sure, meaning to cut and to slice. And these are the words that ultimately end up in the languages meaning to write. And then the by form of the word, of course, is book. And so we have kri, meal and food, which corresponds to kul, meal, and which corresponds to hret, food in Egyptian. And so this may be a loan as well into Meroitic. And then we have Khilbi, ox, bull, good, guru, bull, goody, fat bull, Egyptian, Kharep, tribute, oxen. And so again, this P, which should be a B, in this B are suffixes for dangerous animals. So when you saw that M in Sumerian, you know, that's what it corresponds with in Sumerian for a dangerous animal. But it's B and P on the African side as a suffix for, you know, dangerous animals. And then sh, and then show, make and made. And then, so this is the other book that I was talking about is Haycock, 1971. So it's cited in the text, but I forgot to put it in that footnote. So, and then we have ak, and then to do, make, to act. So K, and then sh. So we already saw a K and S and sh before. So that's at least two, I think. And then saki, small, and then ter. And so S and T, which we've already seen before, but now ch and R in the second consonant position. So we're already at 40 now. So, and then we have mechi, and then he and gal, plenty, abundant, plentiful. So R and L interchange in Sumerian. So in this dialect, that R, that L corresponds now to the ch. So I put this in the same category in terms of this ch and R, and then ch and L. So hopefully, you know, more decipherments will allow us to, you know, confirm further this sound correspondence. And then we have Mik, God. There's no direct in terms of that form, but I believe there's another form, but it would correspond to Ber in Egyptian, and Wer, God and spirit, and Zande and Bori, spirit, Igbo and Bari, artistic creation, because there's a word dealing with a creator and to do. And so the form actually will correspond to a word for penis in Sumerian, but I didn't put it there because I wanted to keep it within that same semantic thing. So now, we're almost getting close to the end. So I thank y'all for bearing with me this long, but you know, I'm gonna go through every single one of them. So, and then Seti, cognate, tutor, and mother. And then we have Shesh, brother, junior worker, assistant. And that's what a cognate is. It's like your, you know, your relative. So in this brother, and then junior worker, assistant, and, you know, like a tutor or whatnot, or an authority figure. So And then I equate this with sin, brother, and I give my reason in Middle Egyptian. I give my reason in footnote 320. So we have set, shit, shitin, or to march or to pass. So sit, foot, foot, pair of feet. And this actually, this is inherited, I know for a fact, because this set is a feature in the Egyptian language that means a place or throne. It's actually a grammatical feature. And as we know from like the works of Mboli and of course my work, my 2016 work, as well as Aluja Volume 2, that in Cyena-Ntu, the words for place that become the suffixes and prefixes for the abstract derive from a word for foot. And so Meroitic kept the foot definition while Middle Egyptian grammaticalized it, and it became the suffix of place. So we know that this is not a borrowing from Middle Egyptian, because sit is not the word for foot in Middle Egyptian. So this is the older form than the one we find in Egyptian. So this is an inherited form. So, but it remains in the Sumerian as shitin with an n suffix for to march or passage. So the verb, I mean the noun, so this is a verbal suffix, itin, shitin, so footin, noun. It becomes the word for to march and passage. So these are definitely cognate. And so in collagen, the older form is keel, meaning foot. So we can tell here that the S is the palatalized version of K, and then from T, D to L. And then we have tre, to offer. And then we have zeng, and then shun. So remember, R corresponds with M. And then, of course, Z and Sh correspond in Sumerian, which corresponds to T. So we see here that this T corresponds to Sh here, and this T corresponds to Sh and Z here. And so to kek, to plunder, to pillage. And then in Sumerian, saga, to trample. And so S, because S is a variant of the Sh, T, and then of course we already established more than 3 times, K to K, and then K to G in terms of Meroitic and Sumerian. So you're seeing these patterns here. So this isn't chance. So we have great potential here to decipher Meroitic, you know, based upon these sound correspondences. And so what we find out here is this tekek here is also, remember I said that T and R's you know, ultimately are palatalized versions of K. And so in Meroitic, you see here irk, to plunder, and this comes from Riley's text. And so this is a dialectical variation of tekek, to plunder, to pillage. So this is a partial reduplication. And so this form corresponds to a form you find in Egyptian, herek, to plunder, to capture. And then chiluba is kwata, catch, take, grab, capture, hold. And so this K palatalized into T, and T became R. So so the Chiluba Bantu form has the older variant of these forms here. But it had its own palatalization or lenition in terms of this T value, because they both used to be K. So it's Kwaka is probably the older form, and then intervocally it became T. And so this form of plunder corresponds to Calajan Lok, to overturn, and then Lakit, hunting, looting, spree, plunder. And so Ka, the ablative grammatical function, and then Ta, Ba, the plural, and then we have Me, we're already established B and M, and then we have Mesh, the plural. So this plural is probably a reduction of mesh. And so remember, there's the word mesh meaning many. And then of course this Ba plural corresponds to Middle Egyptian W plural, and then Bantu Ba human plural. And then but Sumerian has 2 plurals, Me and Mesh, and then ne, plural. And so it corresponds to the collagen in, plural. And then say, the genitive, and then ak, and then say each, and then ta'am, each. And so no M for Meroitic, but M, and this is probably a suffix, in Sumerian. And so Middle Egyptian, chinu, each, every. And then te, locative, and then yete, a type of locative. So this same locative is present in Egyptian as a suffix. And but the Sumerian, I believe, had it, but lost it, and it just became by, at, in. And then yete, a type of locative, and in. So the T was lost in Sumerian, but both E's were kept. Then we have parity, life, vital force, and then we have might. And then I go through the definition here, dealing with or the explanation in 322, that the form in 321, the form in Meroitic is actually a calque or a loan translation of the word life. So this parity is cognate with, other Nilotic and Cushitic forms, borshi, strength, then Proto-Nubian, be'er-idi, strength, satiety, etc. So I said, see Claude Ridley, The Linguistic Position of Meroitic, New Perspectives of Understanding the Text, etc., etc. And then I give some other correspondences in Egyptian and the Yoruba language. So, and then we have Orohe to protect, and then we have Ngal to guard or protect. I think these are syllabic inverses. So remember, there was already a K to H correspondence, and this may be the same thing in reverse. And then Yere, southern, and then Yulu or Ulu, south, south wind. Y equals 0, or it could correspond to U, but I just left it at 0. And then, of course, RL, which we've already established on several occasions. So we have Deme, year, and then Mu, year. And so the loss of in Sumerian of the De, which is still present in Chiluba, Chidimu, year, period, season. And so I think I have this repeated here. So in terms of Sim, spouse, wife, and then Dam, spouse, I have this repeated, so we can eliminate this from the data set. So that was just a repeat. So it's actually only 59 correspondences. And then we have K, to exist, and then a loss again of the liquid, Gal, mal, to exist, and then Chiluba, Ikala, to be, which is to exist. Deek, after, and then Inger, after, rear, back. And so it's possible that we could argue that these are the inverse of each other, like the K corresponding with the Ng, and then R and D. But I have it here as D, Ng, and then K, R here. And so we have Tur, big, and then we have Ngal, big, large, and then Ad and Adeb, earth, and then Mada, earth, land, country in Sumerian. And so this is definitely the inverse. It's a syllabic inverse. And so it corresponds to Geb, earth, and then Yoruba is like Ngaba, something like that. I don't know why that didn't show up here. And so, as we can see here, that there are a number of correspondences here that cannot be looked at as chance. And so what I did in the text is I went through all of them and shown the frequency of the correspondences. So I showed that, there were times where the correspondence on the Sumerian side, so on the left-hand side here is the Meroitic, and then on the right-hand side is the Sumerian. And so you see, in terms of these forms, that the L has been lost in some, and then the M has been lost, and then and then sh. So we see here has been lost, you know, and mainly primarily in the suffixes. But we do have two examples of the M being lost in the prefix or the first consonant position. So, but we see here this pattern. So BP, we only had one correspondence there. So, you know, there's no pattern thus far of B and P corresponding, but that's not to say that there couldn't be a pattern in the future, but definitely BB and then BM. And so, and then BN in one, but B and M is the strongest in three. But, you know, within Sumerian itself, M corresponds with N and M corresponds with B. So I consider all of these strong connections because of the inner dialectical variations you find even within Sumerian. And so we have here D, 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 D. So only two of those, but D, L. But L also corresponds with D in Sumerian. So I consider all these tight. So we have three of the D and sh, and then D and Z, and then D and zero, and then D and and then D and D again. So D and D is strong with three, and then we have three here. We have one loss of D, and then we only have one Meroitic D correspondence with ng. So we don't see a pattern there, but hopefully in the future we may. We only have one H in G, so there's not enough here to determine a pattern. We have one H and K, not enough here to determine a pattern. Then we have this version, this type of H, and corresponds to one K and then one G, but these interchange, so I count these as two, and then one for R and then one for L. So this has potential, but we don't have our three correspondences here yet. But here we have KH, one set, one correspondence, then K, and then KGK, and then KG, then KK, KK. I consider at least all of these to be strong here, and then KS and S, and then KT, and then KR. And so, you know, these are actually palatalized versions, you know, saying of each other here. So I think these are all really, in the long run, KK correspondences here. And so I have my note here, and then we have L00, then LDR. Then we have M and B, MM, and then MMMMM, then MG, and then M, and then MR. And so this wasn't surprising at all. So the MM correspondences and MG and M are strong. Then we have N, which isn't surprising at all as well. Then we have P, M, and then PB, and then P0. So not really enough here to show a pattern, but we do notice that when it does correspond, these are homoorganic. They're all labials. So this is telling, even if we don't have the exact matches for in terms of a pattern, in terms of Meroitic P and Sumerian M or Sumerian B, M and B, however, are all labial sounds. So, hold on a sec. He says, is something wrong with the Raffle link? It doesn't allow me to pay. If there's something wrong with the Raffle link, then just use the link. If you have a Cash App, you can use Cash App, or you can use the link at the bottom where if on the right hand side of the chat, you will see like a little gray box that has a money sign, and then you can put it in there as well. So if you're having problems, you have those other two options. Yeah. I'm sorry. No, not yet. Okay. Sorry, I was talking to somebody in the room. So let me continue. So so we have Q and G, and then Q and and M. Still not enough because we need three or more to establish a pattern. And then we have R, and M, but only one of those correspondences, but definitely RL and RR. So that is strong. And then R, sh, and RS, which may, correspond well as well. So, and then we have SK1, but SS and S and TSD, SD, ST, SZ, SD. Again, these are all kind of organic, homoorganic sounds. They're all done in the same part of the mouth. So this is telling even for the ones who don't have 3 or more patterns, but definitely S and sh. And so since sh also corresponds with T, we can tell that the S's and T's, even in Sumerian, have the same correspondence set. So hold on one second. I see you, OG Gorilla, and thank you for your donation, and your name has been entered in the raffle. So I'm gonna put OG Gorilla. Okay. So let me get out of there. Okay, so we continue. So, we see here the sh, S, and sh, K, not surprising, but since we don't have 3 or more, it's not enough to establish a pattern. But definitely the T and sh, which isn't surprising because sh also corresponds with S, which corresponds. So we know that the S and T in Meroitic, there must have been a split in times past. So that's what that tells us. That's what that tells me right there. So and then Y0, and then WM, and then WU. Matter of fact, it should be another WM there, and then E and E. And then I give some more commentary, and then I attempt to decipher a word in Meroitic. But to get that detail, you have to get the book. So, but I just wanted to go over that to show you the first steps in trying to decipher the Meroitic script, because the objective is to establish these sound correspondences. So if we are able to show these sound correspondences to be hard, then we can go back into the Meroitic script and look for word matches. And then, it's going to be a slow and tedious process. However, we'll be on safer grounds in terms of the decipherment. So, that's that in a nutshell. So if anyone has any questions, this would be a good time to ask your question. And so I'm going to exit out of here. Oop. And then get back to civilization. And then boom. Spider says Clyde Winters proposed pretty much the same thing with regards to Sumerian language, but he used Monday, and so Clyde Winters used Monday for everything. He also said the same thing using Sumerian to understand Meroitic. I don't think he uses Sumerian. Actually, Clyde Winters argues that Meroitic was the language. It's an external, it's not an African language. That's what he argues. And that the priests who started Meroitic civilization were Buddhist monks who came from India. That's Clyde Winters' argument regarding Meroitic. So following his argument, it just wasn't convincing for me. So academics, thank you. I have entered you into the raffle. So I appreciate your contribution. And so I'm going to put you on this list. Medic 82. And let me see. OG asked the question, who I got tomorrow, Ludacris or Nelly? And I'm going to have to go with Ludacris. I'm sorry, I cannot, I can appreciate Nelly, but I just wasn't feeling Nelly like that. But, Ludacris got all the OG hood classics, and his rhyme scheme and his enunciation and his flow is just top notch. So I don't put Mika says put me two on that list. Oh, I have to check the other forms. So I'm gonna give y'all a few more minutes. So I guess he's saying boo. So I guess he's going with Nelly. Yeah, I can't go with Nelly on this one. 42 Tribe says Clyde's good with hard data, but when he has to theorize, it's troublesome. Now I don't trust his work. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's a good dude, but I've had conversations with him before, and he how should I say, when he was trying to critique Jean-Claude Mboli's work, I knew for a fact that he never read Jean-Claude Mboli's work, because he was making arguments that Mboli never made whatsoever. And what Clyde Winters was doing was going to Google Books and looking at the limited preview pages and then trying to make arguments against what he saw in the preview pages. But what he even saw in the preview pages did not, again, Clyde Winters was not, he didn't read it. So he was making arguments on the page that you can actually see that Mboli was not even making. And so this made me question whether he even reads French, because there's no way that you can read French and come to a different interpretation than what we saw, I'm sorry. Okay. A different interpretation than what was actually said in the text. So I just can't roll with him. Then when I had a subsequent conversation with him, what he said was like, I was challenging him, like, how can you make arguments against a text that you haven't read? And so when I made this, I presented this question to him, he was like, I don't need to read a text, saying to make a critique of it. And I'm like, how you don't need to read a text first to make a critique? And so I'm like, since you are a teacher, I'm like, would you accept a student's work? You gave them a book report and they gave you a report and never read the book. And he said yes. And it was at that point that I was like, you know what? I'm sorry. I just can't. See, because I was already, on the fence with him. But at that point, I just couldn't take any of his work seriously, because I've seen several times where he misquotes folks and he says something totally different than what the source says, or he'll get a source wrong and page number wrong. It's just craziness. So I can't do it. Let me see. Luda he says, do you think there will ever be a United States of Africa? I believe so. He says, someone's asking, can we keep the conversation and questions on topic with all due respect? Thanks. Tell him, brother Chuck Morgan. But let me see. somebody else said something. He says, yeah, I remember that conversation on Egypt Search. Yep. And so, again, he's claimed to have deciphered the Meroitic language. But when I went to, find the words that he was using to claim that they were, Meroitic words, I couldn't find it in any text. So he was just making up words and associating them with Meroitic. And so I was like, nah, I can't use his text. And Atiba said, add me to the list. I meant to click that. OG's response back was, we can philosophize and chew gum at the same time. We can. But it's for, the reason why I know he's saying this is because of the different interests that I have on this channel. And so as a result of that, I want to kind of keep certain things separate. So, this summer I'll be starting, well, I've already started it. I'm just kind of getting it organized. I'm going to have another channel on YouTube, and then I'm going to go under the name of Prometheus. And so that channel, I'm going to be talking about more pop culture stuff, more general. I may throw some knowledge in every now and then, but that channel will be concerned with my other interest. And so I can keep this channel, the straight academic scholarship channel, and then the other channel will be my other interests and topics, and we can kind of expand beyond what we do here. So let me see here. So everybody wants to be Afro-Asiatic except Chief X. I don't know what he's saying there. And so I'm giving people enough time. I just saw something. Atiba says add him to the list. Let me refresh here. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to play some music real quick, and I'm gonna give y'all a chance to purchase a ticket, and I'm gonna do the raffle in a sec. So again, you're going to be getting 5 ebooks, and the winner will also get a hard copy of Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam in Modern African Languages, where you will get the full article, which is a chapter in here of what I discussed tonight, and some other things. And so I am going to see who has done what thus far on the different forms. And so I'm just going to play some tracks which I created, and to let the time pass. So I am going to share my screen real quick and go back to the photo gallery page. And let me, boom. And for those that don't know, I do photography as well. So even on the Prometheus, I may be doing some tips on photography and things of that nature. So, again, my other channel is going to be more culture centered than anything. And so, so that's what you see there. So if you have not, if you have not purchased a ticket, again, you can, use the CashApp. And so the CashApp address is in the description box. You can also use it's a special PayPal link, or you can use the chat link for that they normally use for donations. So it's $5 for the ticket. And then, so I'm gonna give y'all about 7-8 minutes or so, maybe even 10 minutes to do that. And then I'm gonna come back and tally the names. And then I'm gonna have some magic hands pull the names out of a hat. And then that is going to be the winter. Y'all got me talking about thinking of Clyde Winter, the winner for the night. So I'll be back. Okay. I am back, and I have a question. So we have I am King Sosa, who said, add me to the list. And I'm trying to make sure that I have the right person. So I'm asking you the question, what are your initials, Atiba? So I can make sure that it is you. So I'm just going to wait a second, and I know there's going to be a time delay. Let me see. And I hope y'all was enjoying some of my classic music production. I produce in a variety of genres of music. And so maybe even on the other channel, I will delve into that and probably have some beat battles, with some folks. So it is hot in here. Hopefully he is still here and listening. So the person with the name I am King Sosa, if you are still there and listening, can you type in the chat your initials that was used on the Cash App? And so if you can confirm that, I can confirm you, and then we can get busy. Matter of fact, hold on one sec. I need some scissors. Atiba Seku. And Atiba, which one did you, because I'm pretty sure these aren't your names, did you use the PayPal, Atiba Seku? Because there's one there that the name didn't come up. And hopefully are you talking to me, Atiba Seku, or someone else in the chat in terms of their back chat? And I am Sosa did not respond yet. I got you, Sister Mika. So I saw yours. I'm just trying to get I am King Sosa to respond and Atiba Seku. Okay. So even though I have not checked my Facebook back chat, or I assume my inbox is what you're saying. Okay. Okay. I see what. Yeah, I'm looking now. I'll enter your name. So, and just to let you know that it came in today too, Brother Atiba. So, as you can see, I got two in here. So the what's name came in today. So I got on the list thus far, I have Ivan, I have Brother Chavez, I have Atiba, I have Sister Mika, I have Achmedic82, I have OG Gorilla, and I have a name. I don't want to say the personal name who came through on Cash App, but I'm trying to make sure that that is him. So if I am King Sosa, comes into the chat and confirms, I'll know that that was him, and I won't put his name in twice. So I'm cutting up the names thus far. So those are the people who have donated thus far. It says Love Sosa. And you said from CashApp. See, it doesn't come up as, oh, I said it. Matter of fact, never mind. It says it right there, clear as day. Never mind. So I confirmed that it was you. So I got you, King Sosa. So didn't want to give your government name out there. So boom, boom. Boom. So I'm going to have to do this old school. So those are the names. So I don't think I missed anybody. And so it's winner takes all for the raffle. And so here are the names thus far in my hand. So I will be back in a second. Hold on one second. Okay. So we're now going to do the drawing. They can't see.
You have to let them see for transparency.
Huh?
You have to let them see for transparency.
That was the C for transparency. Never mind. So here is the makeshift bowl that the names will be dropped in. So I'm dropping them in one by one. And I can't see. So I am going to stir them up and move them around and yada, yada, yada. They will be mixed up. And so I have lovely hands here. Excuse me. I don't know if she wants to identify herself. No, she does not. So I'm going to have her. We'll call her Queen of Sheba for now. So this is mixing it all up in terms of the names. And so I need you to stir the names. She's stirring. I don't know if y'all can see the hands. No. Put it in. So I just want you to stir. So I'm going to stir it up some more. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So now the name will be drawn for the winner. So the name chosen is, can you even read my handwriting? It's OG Gorilla. So OG Gorilla is the winner. So I know it's going to be a time delay. I should have had some, some music, not music, the hand clapping sound. I wish I had that. But the winner is OG Gorilla. So y'all give OG Gorilla a big round of applause. You are the winner, OG Gorilla. And so OG Gorilla, I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to tell you what you won again. So let me go back to the presentation. I'm going to open with Adobe Acrobat. Hold on, let me make sure that is okay. Cool. I'm gonna make sure that is boom. So we're gonna go back up all the way to the beginning. So as I mentioned, he's going to get 5 ebooks, and they are Egypt, Israel, the Ancient Mediterranean World, Rethinking Resistance, Revolt, and Violence in African History, The Kingdom of Kush, Handbook of Napatan Meroitic Civilization, The Lugbara of Uganda, and Nubia in Egypt, 10,000 BC to 400 AD, as well as the physical copy of Towards a Comparative Dictionary of Cikam and Modern African Languages. So congrats to OG Gorilla, but I don't want there to be any losers tonight. So for those who did donate and contribute, you will get 2 of the ebooks. So you won't get all 5 and the physical book, but I want y'all to walk away with something. So again, I'm trying to share my library and let y'all experience what I experience in terms of my studies. So OG Gorilla is the overall winner. So I don't even know if you are on my Facebook or whatnot, but if we are not Facebook friends, hit me up on, let me just do this. Make a banner, and you can send me an email at this address. So boom. So OG Gorilla, hit me up at this address, info@asarimhotep.com. Give me your name and physical address so I can send you the book. And of course, in your email, I will send the e-files as well. So, and everybody else, you know, who donated, you can hit me up at this email address, and I'm going to send you the 2 ebooks out of the 5. So I'm not going to tell you which 2 I'm going to give you. So it's going to be random, my selection, but you know, I just want to give thanks, and I appreciate everyone who has you know, sent me a donation and things, and is helping this channel to grow and thrive. So if there's no questions, OG said check your Facebook inbox. I will definitely do that, and I'll get this to you. I'll mail this off either, what's tomorrow? Saturday. More than likely it's going to be Monday that I mail this off to you. And then if there's a tracking number or whatnot, I'll give that to you so you can get it. But everyone else, I'm going to sleep after this, so you will get your ebooks on tomorrow. I may just give it to you tonight. I may get it out of the way before I go to sleep. But so yeah, so if y'all already friends with me on Facebook, y'all can hit me up there. If not, you can send me an email, those who donated. And, you know, some of y'all already know already, or at least on Facebook. So Brother Chavez, Sister Mika, or whatnot. So just give me your email addresses so I can send it to your email address. And from there, let me see. Yeah, y'all having your own discussion and debates. And over here in the chat, and it doesn't look like there is any questions per se. So keep the conversation going. I will talk to y'all on Tuesday. Why? Because Dr. Vanessa Davies is going to be on the program, and we're going to talk about, the recognition or non-recognition of Black scholars as it regards ancient Egypt. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about W.E.B. Du Bois and Williams Flinders Petrie and their relationship in the exchange of knowledge regarding that. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us, and y'all have a safe weekend and rest well and do something productive. All right. Peace.